Okay guys, here we are at the bench and I've got all the guns laid out, the Taurus that I'm going to be comparing this to, and I also have my full-size TP9 SFX out here that I wanted to show you guys just again for comparison. And you can see it looks like the baby brother of this thing. Talk about the different dimensions and also the weight of this, just to give people a complete overview of this thing, because there have been the Canik forums, the Canik Facebook groups are very active, and people have been talking about, oh, I don't like the width of it, it looks too fat, I don't like the weight of it, it sounds too heavy for a gun that size, and on and on and on. So let's talk about these different things. Canik, this has a 3.6 inch barrel. The Taurus has a 3.2 inch barrel, so it's a little bit smaller. The width on the Canik TP9 Elite SC is measured and is published at 1.45. The width on the Taurus PT111, the G2, and there's a G3 model coming out. These are measured at 1 inch, or about 1.1, depending on who you ask, depending on what you read. And then this full size is also at about 1 inch, I believe, so we'll measure that to see. So you're talking about, at least in published numbers, almost a ½ inch difference in width. And you know, you can see that here when you talk about how fat the magazine well looks. Definitely when you put the two guns together, you can see things like, for instance, the trigger guard looks much fatter on the Canik. The just overall body of it looks much fatter. That was the first thing that I noticed when they took it out of the showcase at the gun store, and I was like, oh damn, I don't know if I want that. Because of the width. Let's see where they're measuring it. So I was messing around with this off camera, and what they're measuring for the 1.46 is they're measuring on the outside of the slide stop release. So the Canik TP9 Elite SC has a ambidextrous slide stop, so you have a one on each side of the gun. We're actually measuring on the outside distance of that. And when you put it on calipers on it, it is 1.45. So I don't know if you guys can see that. Just take my word for it. It's 1.45. But if you measure the grip measures in at 1.14. Of course, like I said, is measuring in at 1 inch, and it shows that on the calipers 1.1. If you actually measure the outside, it's 1.19, so 1.2. So when you're talking about the widths of these things, really it is sort of not adding up, because what you're talking about is these slide stops. Now, you know, I guess when you know, technically these are going to be covered up by your holster. You can see that they are covered up, and so the holster is, you know, is molded to accommodate that protrusion on both sides. But it seems so minor that I would like to tell people you should really put it out of your head that this thing is too fat compared to something like a PT111, because when you actually do compare the grip widths, which I think, I'm not sure if people go by grip widths more or not, but this is 1.14, so you could actually say the grips are almost the same. I mean, 1.114. So take it for what it's worth. The full size model, this has some grip tape on it, but this is 1.18 in width for a full size model. If we measure over the slide stop on the full size, it's 1.3. So it is a little bit skinnier than the Elite SC, because it only has a slide stop on one side on the full size, and this Elite SC. So that's what is making this thing seem fat on paper, published numbers, is because they're measuring the distance from outside to outside of the slide stop. So I'll let you guys digest that and do what you will, but I really wanted to point that out because I don't think it's a hindrance as far as some of the comments that people were making online. I will say that, you know, definitely for anybody that's held a G2, these things, I love the way that these G2s feel in my hand. They do have, their mags have the pinky sort of area on it, but these things fit my hand freaking perfect. I always love this G2. I've shot, like I said earlier, tens of thousands of rounds through it. through a USPSA, but I really loved how these were so skinny and still felt super solid in your hand. So when you talk about the Canik, you know, depending on what magazine you use, you're going to have sort of a difference of opinion there, you know, depending on the size of your hand, the way that it fits, you know, whether or not you're using the extended base pad on that, whether or not you're using the pinky base pad on it. I will say that, as I mentioned in the first video I'd put out yesterday, I was talking about how, you know, you could feel the fat of your hand going into this back area when using these two different mags that they come with. But what it looks like is that these are actually, this spot here is made for the flush base plate. So you can see that it's actually cut out just a little bit, and that the base plate is meant to fit on there just like that. So that's pretty flush. You still sort of have this beveled edge back here, but know that if you want to do that, I guess the 12 rounder with the flat base pad that they include with the gun will fit on there just like that, and you can get a nice flat. When we talk about the weights, I just want to touch on that real quick. I got my scale here. What the published weight on this gun on the Canik is 24.78. I did a little weighing beforehand, and that's with the magazine. So 24.78 ounces unloaded with a magazine. My scale is reading 25 ounces, so, you know, give or take 0.2 ounces. So that's pretty much in line with their published numbers. As far as the Taurus goes with the magazine, that weighs 21.3. So you're talking around 3 ounces difference in weights between the two unloaded guns. So definitely a difference there. I would say that's definitely got to be in the slide. This slide seems pretty heavy. It would have been nice if they put some cuts on it, if they, you know, put some ports on it like they did on the full-size version here. But, you know, it is what it is, and that's the weights of them. So we're talking 25 ounces, 24.78 on the Canik. The Taurus PT111 is coming in unloaded at 21.4, we'll say. Okay, and just for people's knowledge, a full size, let's see, full size with a regular mag is 30. So you got 30.7 ounces on a full size with an optic and an extended. This is a stock 2+ extended. If I was to put a Cane Arms, what is that, 4+, still 30.7 because he's doing these in 3D. So 30 ounces, almost 31 ounces for a full size. So you've got what, about, again, 5 ounces difference. This thing weighs 5 ounces heavier than this subcompact. So for some people that might be too heavy. I don't know. If you can feel a couple ounces over the day, you know, once you put a magazine in, I've got a magazine over here, you know, this is that's another 9 ounces right there. So you're talking, this is going to be up to at least 30 ounces loaded up. So again, if that's an issue for you, then there's some information for you. All right, so that's the sizing and the weights of them.